Welcome to the CHARBON Report. I'm Michael A. Charbon. A special welcome to our new listeners on Google, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. Today's title, Biden's Boots and EU Boats of Illegals. America's immigration boots at the southern border have lessons to learn from Europe's boats of migrants. Biden's open border policy takes illegal immigrants, gives them minimal processing, and then relocates them in unsuspecting interior American cities, left to fend for themselves on social services, with the promise of connecting in several months to review their status. Yeah. Many of these U.S. border boot asylum seekers are economic refugees seeking to better their lives. States like Texas have sounded the alarm. Social welfare organizations have signaled that they are overwhelmed. Some predict that in the coming years, the U.S. will have a second crisis. A crisis dealing with the fallout and repercussions of Biden's dangerous immigration policy. So it begs the question, are there examples that could lend insight to what's potentially coming to America? Well, remember Europe in 2015 when 1.5 million refugees came by land as a result of the Syrian war. And then they came by boats, packed with illegals trying to get to the European shores. We remember that tragic photo of that poor child who drowned trying to cross in a migrant boat. Initially, many European countries saw these boats filled with desperate humanity as needing rescuing. You know, there's an international nautical law that mandates that any vessel give aid to another in distress. If the boat is loaded with 500 migrants, they have a further legal obligation to take the people to a port of safety. That is, if the country will take them. The reality was many of these boats were filled with paying asylum seekers, desperate, hungry, poor, and many sick, with the goal to enter Europe and move to the UK or Germany because of a bountiful social service and a sympathetic populace. Sound familiar? As with anything that works once, illegals on rickety boats sold by organized crime and syndicates became the way to get asylum to Europe. Italy and the EU were overrun as hundreds then became thousands. It was a huge problem. Suddenly, the migrants weren't Syrians seeking escape. They were Africans, Eritreans, Somalians, and other refugees. Economic refugees who believed that they had the right to get in a boat and sail into a country unannounced and unauthorized. Just come on in. At one point, there were huge encampments of illegal refugees waiting as squatters in camps in Calais, France, to go either by boat via the English Channel or quietly through the nightly closure of the Channel to get to the UK. Imagine that. As no country wanted to accept the boat migrants and no rescuer wanted to assume the responsibility and the financial burden, like dealing with 500 sick, desperate illegals, the nautical option in Europe became a bad idea. The crisis then shifted yet again, from boats to boots. For context, consider Europe before COVID. They already had financial problems with Italy and Greece having huge debt. Greece actually defaulted 1.6 billion euros on its International Monetary Fund loan. So having to deal with huge legions of illegals entering and burdening the economy is not really a recipe for success. Another factor was the electorate, the voters. Many of these countries, they became inflamed with the number, the cost, and the social burden that they were having to shoulder. This resulted in a political wave of change, one that leaned more nationalistic and focused on hard borders. Have you heard that song before? So as boats moved to boots, guess what the countries did? Well, they built walls. They set up barriers and barbed wire, physical barriers to stop migrants from illegally entering the country. There's another tune. Remember the Belarus and Poland border? Poland said, "You're not coming in, we're not having you." So what did the migrants do? They encamped right on the border of Belarus, in the woods, just set up camp. Does that remind you of 9,500 Haitians under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas? So the solution for Europe, stop them by sea and or by land. You repatriate those who get through, which is a nice way of saying they're going to stick you on a plane and fly you home. Repeat offenders are detained, while some are placed in refugee camps and others are integrated. So as America looks forward to when Biden is held responsible for this horrible immigration policy, it is the next administration who will be tasked with mopping up the immigration mess. So what are the lessons Europe learned? Now, I have to say, this is very important. There are many successful stories of those who came, learned the language, went to school, and embraced the country and the culture that gave them a chance. But the other side of that story reveals hard lessons that America will have to deal with. For example, low-cost housing became hard to find. The limited options that existed got worse, run down, and saw devalued real estate rates. As the jobless rates for immigrants was 15% higher due to lack of basic education and language skills, gangs and criminal syndicates grew, resulting in increased crime as the gangs collected from indebted illegals. Social services, access for everyone suffered due to overwhelming needs. Refugee politics, the talk about politics and refugees became mainstream as polarized radical factions became louder, as the nation's frustration to what many call an invasion and a burden on society hits home, but in the ballot box. Schools with students who didn't speak the language or possess the basic educational building blocks impeded the progress and the process of learning. For survival, pockets of immigrants, they created businesses. They collected themselves to serve themselves in their own languages, which lowers property values, and then it becomes inherent a sense of hesitancy to rent to them in the fear that too many will exert negative real estate values. It's a horrible process. So get ready, America. Biden's 2 million boots will be marching into your politics, your pocketbooks, your schools, and your social services. A second wave that neither Dr. Fauci or the Democrats will have a ready vaccine for this time. Finally, please click and share and kindly subscribe. For those listening to the audio version, please subscribe to Spotify and Google Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I thank you for those considerations, and until next time, God bless and stay safe. I'm Michael A. Charbon for the CHARBON Report.